Hi there, this is Saultjie Ronan from Saultjie Ronan Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review is The Void from 2016, directed by Jeremy Gillespie and Steven Kostanski, who did Father's Day before this, and then Kostanski wrote and directed Psycho Goreman in 2020. This is a film from 2016. Now, a little while ago I made a video about rip-off films that are actually worth your time, and I feel The Void, which I hadn't seen at that point, fits perfectly into that type of film. The Void has many influences and it doesn't hide them, but it's still a lot of fun. It follows the adventures of a patrol officer who picks up somebody who looks like they are in trouble, takes them to a local hospital, and literally all hell breaks loose. This has elements of John Carpenter, especially Assault on Precinct 13. I mean, it's essentially Assault on Precinct 13. It has some Clive Barker and Hellraiser. It has Race with the Devil. It's very reminiscent of Baskin from 2015, the Turkish horror film, which I've done a video on a while ago as well. There's the elements of Lovecraft. You know, there are tentacles and evidence that automatically makes it Lovecraft. It's a low budget film, but they make wonderful use of practical effects. They both have a background in practical effects. It's one of those films that they did like a 90-second trailer video for at a festival, and then they got funding on the basis of that trailer. Essentially, they didn't have a script, so they got funding to actually make the film, but then funding pulled out twice, so it was shut down twice before they actually made it. This Blu-ray release, which you can pick up for not a lot of money at all, it's actually a pretty good release because there's about a 25-minute behind the scenes, which is fascinating. That does have the original trailer before it was actually made. It's got a commentary, it's got a piece on the art of the film, and it's got the making of the creature design. So the film starts with a man coming out of a house, and then a woman rushes out of the house, and they are being chased by two men, one with a shotgun who proceeds to shoot the woman in the back, and then the two men pour petrol on the woman, who's not quite dead, and set fire to her. And that is the start of the film. And we pick up the police officer in his car, who's doing not much of anything, and then the man who's being chased comes out of the woods, and then he picks him up and takes him to the hospital. Now the hospital, just like Assault on Precinct 13, is being moved, so there's only 4 members of staff working. So again, it's a small budget film. We have pretty much one location. We have a low number of cast members, low number of characters, So there's a couple of patients, an older man and his daughter who is pregnant. And like I said, we only have 4 members of staff. And because it's a small town, the deputy knows the female doctor, and they have a history together. I won't tell you what that history is, but that has deeper meaning as the film progresses. And then he brings the guy in, and there are strange cloaked characters like Ku Klux Klan members, but with black triangles on their faces, and they are surrounding the hospital. So it's very Assault on Precinct 13. And then the 2 guys who were chasing the man who came out of the house, they appear at the hospital, and obviously there's antagonism going on, and then things really kind of kick off. Now, as you can see by the pictures I've used in the background, I haven't particularly put anything that hints at what goes on in the film, because that would be spoiling it. All I would say is this is about a descent into hell, essentially. But again, it's a journey. The antagonist is looking for a way to beat life and death and go to push the boundaries further. So again, there's a bit of event horizon in it as well. It is a film that is chock full of influences, like I said, but still manages to be its own film, and I think it works really well. And again, considering the budget they had, it is quite an amazing achievement. The film itself is very dark, and I don't mean subject matter, because I wouldn't watch it on while you're eating your dinner, certainly. There's a lot of gore. The creature design is very creepy. There's a creepy atmosphere. You might lose your lunch over it. But it's just shot very dark. Again, you don't really want to see creature design in bright light, because with practical effects, But the way it's shot in the dark, there is strobe lighting, so if strobe lighting gives you a problem, there's a few scenes that have strobe lighting, but again, they're really effective. So you can see some of the creature design, you don't necessarily see everything. There's other scenes that they just use a lot of red light. So I would say the best way to see this film is on as big a screen as possible to actually see what's going on. Sometimes it's very disorientating, because some of the creatures are more Lovecraftian, but you really have to watch it in a dark room as well. If you have lights on and you have glare on your television or whatever screen you're watching it on, you're probably not going to see the detail. I would certainly obviously recommend, as I throw something away, I would certainly recommend watching it on a Blu-ray rather than a DVD if you can, because again, it's just sharper and you can actually see lots of more disgusting detail. Obviously, if you don't want to watch disgusting detail, then by all means watch a DVD or a VHS. But they get away with how things are lit that give you some of your imagination actually works on the creature design, rather than obviously just having the creature in brilliant white light and you can see every little detail. It's a very wet film. It's slimy, it's uncomfortable. The wonderful Art Hindle from Cronenberg's The Brood and other films, he turns up as a more senior police officer. And Kenneth Welsh, who you might not be familiar with the name, but you'll be familiar with the face, he turns up as the senior doctor on site. It's just a wonderful film. The two men who turn up after we've seen them shooting a woman and setting her on fire, we do find out the reasoning behind their actions. One of them is older and angry, and the other one is younger and has an injury on his throat, on his neck, so he can't actually speak. So that probably cuts down how much they had to pay him for lines, because he doesn't actually speak. And obviously in the grounds of the hospital, in the basement of the hospital, there's something going on. We find out why all these cloaked characters have appeared at the hospital. And just like Baskin, the film I mentioned earlier, obviously there's a descent into the basement, and it's literally a descent into hell, but then perhaps a moving on through hell and out the other side to something else. So again, it starts off as a siege film, it starts off as a monster movie, but then it kind of elevates into something a bit more transcendental, a bit more existential. It's really well paced, it's 91 minutes, but literally within, well, obviously we have the shooting and setting fire to a woman within the first 2 minutes, but within 13 minutes we're having people cutting their faces off and putting scissors through somebody's eyeball. So it really kicks off, and it doesn't really let up for the hour and a half. Really well paced, rattles along, but there's still time for some character stuff. Again, the relationship between the cop and the female doctor, we kind of slowly find out their story. It's not rushed, and it's just a perfect example of a small budget film, but the practical effects just mean so much. You know, they could have put it on a computer, but it just wouldn't have looked as good, because like I said, you can really feel the gore, you can really feel the ooze, you can feel the slime. Again, I'm not going to go into the specific creature design, there's lots of different things that turn up. It is one of those films that you really need to watch for yourselves. And again, if it sounds like something you'd be interested in, you know, a mix of Assault on Precinct 13, a mix of Hellraiser, a mix of Event Horizon, a mix of Race with the Devil, then again, I think I got this for like £3 sterling, and again, like I said, the extras are really good on it. How they managed to kind of rally together to make this small budgeted film. Again, the actors talk about it, and again, I have to be honest, when there's like behind the scenes, I'm not really that interested in what the actors say, because they usually say the usual things. It's the most amazing film I've ever worked on, it's the greatest script I've ever worked with, you know, the greatest director I've ever worked with. The special effects are far more interesting to me, and you know, the directors and producers trying to work out how the hell to actually make this. So it's just a wonderful little film. You know, is it a masterpiece? No, but it's certainly a film that, despite wearing its influences on its very bloody and gory sleeve, it will give you a good time. But obviously it is an 18 certificate for a reason, thank goodness. It is pretty full on, but in the end It's actually quite beautiful and uplifting, kind of. So thanks very much for watching this random review. Please let me know if you've seen The Void and what you think of it. And hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying don't go through any doors that have a black triangle painting on them. Farewell.